Hey guys, welcome back to the definitive ranking of The Legend of Zelda. In the last episode, we looked at Twilight Princess, but this month, we're taking a deep dive into The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons. Just as last month, we put out a poll for the community to vote in. We had a little bit less response this time. I think just the nature of it
was expected, yeah.
Oracle of Seasons, not quite as popular as Twilight Princess, but that doesn't necessarily mean it ranked worse. We both got a chance to replay it, and had you played Oracle of Seasons recently at all?
I played it a year and a half ago, two years ago, something like that, and that was my first time replaying it since, like, being a kid. I never owned it as a child, and I never completed it as a child, so, like, I had only vague, maybe playing a little bit on an emulator or something like that, but... It's more of a modern game for me.
Did it still feel kind of new in the sense that you weren't like totally familiar with everything?
I mean, this time around, I was like, I remember, okay, this is that dungeon. I know, okay, I got to go to the sunken city now, and I know what you do there. I never got hung up on anything really, except for maybe some navigation issues sometimes. But yeah, it still was pretty fresh though. It just wasn't. It was a good middle ground, actually, where I was, like, re-experiencing things, but also still, like, get a little bit of challenge, It's like some Zelda games I play now, and I just, So it's a good middle point, I'd say.
I've probably played this game approximately 47 times, I think.
Right.
Then again, I've been working on the walkthrough for the game recently, so it's been fresh in my mind. But I played through it again. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the world of Oracle of Seasons.
So I said it was good. I think it's really fun to navigate and explore around, especially with the main gimmick of the game, changing the seasons. It's got basically four different, ways it can look for every screen. I think that's really cool. And, I love the way it's got that classic Zelda thing of like, once they started to go harder on items and stuff like that, where as you collect more items, you can kind of pick away at the map.
Right, yeah.
And you keep watching, all the squares get filled in as you progress throughout the game. I love that aspect of the world. Just in pure gameplay-wise, it's a real fun world to play. I do think it's kind of sparse, though, in terms of, like, characters and like, interesting locations or towns. It's kind of a throwback to Zelda 1 in a way, which has no towns, That comes off fine in that game. In this game, it seems a little odd.
It's a fairly empty world in terms of people.
Yeah.
There's a few isolated people here and there, and then there's like the Gorons up top, and there's the Sunken City people, but not many meaningful characters in this world, I would say. I want to like it.
Okay.
But it's got too many things going against it, I think. I love the fact that you can go to an area, like early on, you get like the winter season first. And that's the only season you have. And so each of the areas have a default season as well. So, but then like later on, you can come back with the spring. And it's like, oh, there's new stuff here.
Yeah.
And I love that. It like multiplies the overworld by 4 to an extent, maybe not fully, but it's worth noting that it does have somewhat of a dual world. Despite playing this game, like I said, 47 times, I still don't have a mental map of Subrosia in my head.
Even how it connects to the was it Holodrum?
Yeah.
Yeah. How it connects to Holodrum, it doesn't really or it probably makes sense, but it just doesn't feel.
Right, it's not like you're on the east side of the map, so therefore you're on the east side. I don't like Subrosia. I don't like navigating it. And I felt the world, none of the characters in the world really enticed me. In fact, like even the main town, can you name a character in Horon Village?
I can describe some.
Yeah.
There's like the mayor or something,
Yeah, there's Bippin and Blossom.
Right.
But like the world... I don't feel like I want to spend time in this world and talk to these characters.
Definitely from a pure like character or story standpoint, I agree. Like I said, I do like the navigation. I like Subrosia as a concept. I think it's kind of cool. It's like they say it's like underground, but there's also like portals. It sounds like hell to me, you know what I mean? But you go there and it's like this doofy music playing and everyone's like likes to dance and like play hide and seek and stuff.
They throw boomerangs. And
with the concept of changing the weather, it's fun for navigation, but you could integrate it with the characters more, like sort of like the dual multiple world changing elements in other Zelda games where you change time or something like that. You always at least have some characters where I feel like you get a significant story where you do something for them, like, you know, change, you know, definitely with time travel there's obvious stuff there, but even I think of like little stuff like Flute Boy in A Link to the Past, where it's going between worlds and they tell a nice little story there. There's nothing really with that with seasons in this one, because the way they implement that mechanic into the game, there's not much you really could do with it,
right?
Other than like have Moosh be like, I need the banana or whatever. It's just it's not a great story there.
Most of the characters don't interact with the seasons.
Yeah,
there's like the little kid in Horon Village that like, oh, it's spring, so the flower he uses as like a trampoline, and
right.
But like there's most of them,
or it's like, oh, are you Santa Claus? You know, okay,
it's cute.
It's cute, yeah. But it's I thought it was good just because I always enjoyed playing it. You know, I was just always having fun.
Looking at the art style, looks like we completely agreed on this one.
Yeah,
you and I, we both liked it.
I liked it a lot, actually.
Okay, and you know, we mentioned with the categories here, everything's kind of up for interpretation with what you want to include. So this could be like the graphical art style, but it could also be some of the official art and the box art and stuff like that.
Yeah, just for me, it's the overall vibe you get from the game. And I do, like, if we're talking about the official art, that did help it for me, just because it's that classic Zelda style that I think of from the, like, early 90s to early 2000s, you know, all the 2D games of that era. I love that. That's like bar none my favorite official art style of Zelda, you know what I mean? You know, some of the character designs I think are definitive, iconic character designs. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have just a 2D sprite of a character, but then almost every major character and its sister game, Oracle of Ages, they all have their own unique artwork. And I like how some of the artwork relates to their character. So like there's like Mayor Rule, for example. He's like dancing with like he's holding up a gacha seed. And his artwork, it just looks kind of cool.
Yeah, it like brings them to life a little bit more.
It does, yeah.
Even from the Game Boy, yeah.
Yeah, and it has Captain and the Pyrations are like these little kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, it's cute. I like it.
I mean, on top of that, though, I love the Game Boy Zelda's art styles, the 3 Game Boy Color games. There is something. It might just because I grew up with Link's Awakening, and so it shares that similar style. But there's just something about it that hits me right. But especially in this, because now this is designed for the Game Boy Color, so the color is brought into mind way more than in Link's Awakening. I mean, especially, again, with the seasons.
Right.
Just some of the screens, like, changing it and then being like, wow, you know, it goes from, like, this dead winter forest to now it's colorful and there's mushrooms growing or something. You know, like, I love that. I think it's incredible.
I found it sometimes difficult to note the differences between spring and summer.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
They could have done a little bit more to differentiate those, because I think autumn and winter are totally different in their color schemes and what's going on screen.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of representing it. Also, another thing, just another minor thing with the color is like all the dungeons in this game are very vibrant. You know, in Link's Awakening, I think they went with a more, I want to say like realistic palette, but you know what I mean. It's like more natural muted colors, where this is like the floor will be like yellow and green or purple and like totally.
This is the blue dungeon. This is the purple dungeon.
Yeah.
Each dungeon is its own color.
And they're the like palettes that they go with them are very, very distinct. I think it's very cool.
All right, moving on to the story. And it's worth noting that this was the lowest score that the staff gave, collectively with a 2.4.
Okay.
The second lowest score from the community, and my lowest score as well, because I gave it a 1.
Okay.
I felt
1.
Yeah, I will give it. It's straight to the point. You meet Onyx at the very beginning, who's the main villain, and he kidnaps Din, and it's like, all right, you have an objective right away. You got to save Din. Mm-hmm. You meet the Mako tree in the first 10 minutes of the game. Like, oh, you got to restore. You got to get all the essence of the seasons. Then you're off on your adventure. And unlike most Zelda games where sometimes you got to beat 3 dungeons and then there's like some sort of plot twist or whatever, there is no plot twist, really. Mm-hmm. There is no anything. Yeah. You don't meet any... you don't see Onyx until the end of the game. Mm-hmm. You don't... you can interact with the Mako tree, but you don't really have to because he just talks to you. Like, you don't actually visit him. There's no... you do meet Twin Rova randomly on your way to the ancient ruins before the 6th dungeon, of which you don't even know who that character is, though. Yeah. Like, it's ambiguous.
And I guess it depends on how you play it, too, but, they might not even matter that much to the story.
If you don't own Oracle of Ages and you're only playing Oracle of Seasons by itself, that character makes no sense whatsoever, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not going to knock it for that. But I felt... this game this is a post 2000s game. I expect more from the storyline of Zelda by now.
That's the thing I was going for. And it's because it is very simplistic, but I also think just to set a precedent for later, I'm probably going to give other games where people view the story as simplistic, good scores. Because I think there is value in a simple story, which is also why I didn't go 1. Because it's you're moving along through the game. It's not disappointing me. I'll take that over too much and a slog and nothing adds up. As I like this aspect of it more, where it's it's forgettable, but it doesn't matter. But I will say it does lack, especially even if you compare it to its contemporaries, and I'm not just talking ages. I'm Link's Awakening even that's very simplistic and still has something interesting little tidbits. This I feel like you get nothing. Again, not even the characters I think are just saying anything interesting. It's just a lot of the seasons are messed up. I mean, a lot of this game to me comes down to how much you like being in Subrosia.
Okay.
Because I don't mind a game where you don't really see the villain until the end. That's fine, I guess. But if you give me something good. But a lot of the between the dungeons in this game is you go to Subrosia and you gotta dig up and go on a date. You know
what? I like Rosa. I like how everybody wants to go on a date with Rosa.
Okay.
There's a whole... If you talk to all the Subrosians, they're all like, oh, I gotta get a star so I can go on a date with her. Oh, you got to go on a date with her. They're all... It's all about dating Rosa.
I don't like anything in that area, really. I mean, some of that's even cute in its own, but I just wish... I feel like this was one that didn't need... It didn't need that second world. It's much like Twilight Princess again to me, where it's just cut out this aspect of it, and I probably like the game a lot more. I think they should have done more with the story with the seasons. Even if you don't see Onyx, you could go affect other people's lives or something. As you're going between the dungeons. Again, involving changing the seasons or something,
Right.
Even if it's just these little quests.
There's not that many in between, sometimes there's subplots. Like in Twilight Princess, we talked about the children. It doesn't have as much of that in this one.
Yeah. You at least do one thing every time. Well, no, sometimes no.
There is more to the story in the Linked game.
Yeah.
When, especially... when you find out, Queen Ambi's character from Oracle of Ages, she appears in Oracle of Seasons in a Linked game.
Yeah.
It turns out, in Oracle of Ages, she's building her Black Tower because she's looking for her true love.
Who's Captain, right?
Who ends up being the captain of the Pyration.
Yeah.
So there's a cool little love story between the Queen and a dead skeleton.
Right. I think, there's a lot of cool bits like that within the Link game, which is, again, why... I boosted it up from... It's not bad. It's just... It's okay because
it's more non-existent than bad. In my opinion.
Yeah. It doesn't get me excited though, for sure.
Let's talk about the pacing and progression. I think it's fantastic myself because I think there's I gave it a 4. The game does start off very easy. I would say early on,
certainly.
Like that first dungeon, Gnarled Root, and even into Snake's Remains, like the first few bosses, there's nothing complicated. Nobody's really getting stuck, and it does ramp up. I think fairly. Like I think the difficulty
is like this. I feel like
yes.
It's just constant up.
Yes, in terms of the enemies and bosses, and then towards the later dungeons, the how complicated some of the dungeons are. You don't know where to go. So I think it's got the right difficulty progression, and I think the pacing is solid. You're going dungeon to dungeon. It's a dungeon crawler, but like there's always something to do before each dungeon. The only negative I have is sort of what you touched on earlier. It is a little repetitive. You're just going back to Subrosia over and over. Each time you go to Subrosia, something different is happening. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I wanted a little bit more.
For me, it again comes down to like I'm just never. It wasn't as bad this time because I had the familiarity a little bit. But I just I'm not ever having a good time in Subrosia. I don't know what it is. I just don't. I don't like that world or whatever that much, and I don't like doing the dance. I don't hate it like I've seen some people, but I just never. I'm just ready to like do the next thing, and so that's what stops it from like being great to me. But it's also all that stuff it's different than like stuff I complained about in Twilight Princess because it takes 2 minutes to do each thing. So it's just like okay, whatever, that wasn't good, but it wasn't great, but on to the next thing. And then get into these dungeons that I like a lot. So
moving on to the gameplay and combat. Clearly you loved it.
I loved it, yeah. I just simply love this old school Game Boy gameplay. Okay. Like, and again, I think it has to do with growing up with Link's Awakening, maybe. Everything about it just feels so good and so natural about it. And it's a Game Boy game. I like the combat in this. I might sound blasphemous, but for me, I like it more than like A Link to the Past in terms of how it feels. It clicks with me. I don't know what it is. It might be super subjective here, but like that's just like everything feels good. Fighting enemies, the way they sound when you hit them and kill them, like it just clicks in my brain. On top of that, like all the items that they have in this game, like most of them really help with the way you navigate or fight enemies. Like I just think you go from jumping around, and you have the Pegasus seeds that help your jumping, and then to like floating. I just find all that really fun when it comes to not just the combat but the navigation around the world. So again, like even though sometimes this world was like kind of barren and stuff like that, I was just going from point A to point B, just always having a blast with it. I just loved going around the overworld, like looking for the dungeon, fighting enemies. Just it doesn't get old,
Yeah, I think it's a good because this game, the foundation of Oracle of Seasons is Link's Awakening. I feel and this took it to the next level. Like one thing, the dungeons are all much bigger, both in terms of the size of the rooms, but more so the actual rooms are not just a set square because they scroll, so it allows for much bigger areas to navigate. It's one of those minor things that I think change things a little bit. I kind of factor in puzzles into gameplay as well. Yeah. And so I agree with virtually everything you said. Like I was ready to hit 5 on this one and move on. Okay. But I dropped it to 4.
You don't like the puzzles or?
One puzzle in particular, and usually I wouldn't let one puzzle bother me this much, but it's the whole quest when you're on your way to the ancient ruins, when you got to go through the woods, and you got to go on the stump and you change the seasons. Okay. The puzzle is you have to change the seasons. I believe it says like in increasing or like as the weather gets warmer. Yes. And I'm no meteorologist here. But I'm like,
where are you going with this?
I'm like, my initial thought is, well, fall, it's getting colder as the season goes, so it's because it's leading towards winter.
Oh, okay.
This was my initial thought. And then winter's the coldest. Spring, it starts getting warmer, and then summer's the hottest.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, like, this was my thoughts as a 14-year-old Mossie's playing this game, like, brand new. And I'm like, I was stuck. I didn't understand.
Because you're thinking chronologically?
Yeah. But then even if you don't think of it that way, what's a warmer season, spring or fall?
Oh. I did not have this issue at all, actually.
I don't like this puzzle at all.
Okay.
I bet,
sure.
I'm willing to bet that a significant portion of people got stuck here and had to look something up.
Okay.
I really think so.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, there's parts in this game that I can think of where I just struggled for a bit more from a mechanical aspect because of a weird thing, but like it was the flip side of what you're saying where it's like I'm not going to let this one little thing affect this because 99% of the time I was having a blast.
The only reason I'm making a big deal about this one is, one, it's part of the main quest where you have to do this to progress. And two, it is the culmination of the trading sequence as well, where it says it's the same puzzle. You don't even need to do the trading sequence, by the way.
Right.
You know, which is kind of lame if you ask me. Like the deck of script should just give you the sword. Right? You don't need to. So it's anyway. This one puzzle is part of the main quest, and it is the end of the trading sequence. So it's a big deal.
Okay.
It's not just throwaway puzzle.
Wow. When I was there, I was like, oh, this is kind of neat little riddle.
Okay.
It never crossed my mind. But
wow.
Okay. I accept that.
I got stuck when I was 14, and I've played this game however many times. And when I played through this time, I got stuck again.
Wow.
You kind of dabbled into it a little bit, the items and the abilities. We're in agreement on this one.
They're great.
They really are. And I feel there is very few things in the entire Legend of Zelda series that are as satisfying as using the Pegasus Seeds and Rock's Feather.
And just flying.
Not Rock's Feather. Rock's Cape. Yes.
Yeah.
Rock's Feather is okay. We saw that in Link's Awakening.
But, I mean, it's still a great item, I think.
We get it early on, in Poison Moss Lair, the third dungeon. But then you get Rock's Cape in Explorer's Crypt. Once you get that, it's
a game changer.
Oh my god. Does it feel amazing?
Yeah. Again, it feels good to do. It just clicks. Yeah. I feel like it also does a good job of taking the items you use in Link's Awakening and kind of like giving them a slight upgrade in how you use them. You get the bracelet in Link's Awakening and it's like, okay, cool, I can lift stuff. It's not that exciting, but it does change the world a lot, so it's cool. But in this, it's like, okay, what else can you do with it that would make it kind of fun? So you have like pushing those cylinder objects across the screen,
right? Yeah.
And then they add in like where you have to push it but jump over stuff, you know. So there's a lot of good like item combinations in this, especially when you come into a dungeon. This is like a normal thing in Zelda now, but you come into a dungeon and you're going to be using a lot of what you used in the last dungeon till you get the next one, and then you're going to even use them in combination. And I think they do a really good job at that.
Yeah.
And every item you get, I think, changes the game so much. Like it changes your navigation, the way you interact with the world and puzzles, but also it changes where you can go in the world, you know. Like that's a I mean, obvious Zelda thing, but they just do it so well.
It's more it's here. It's in this game more than most.
Yeah, it's so strong.
There's rocks like all over the place, and like at the beginning of the game, and it's like, oh, you finally get the power bracelet. Now you can lift all of those. And even before that, the trees that are all over the place, like.
And they build on each other well, like not in just combination, but also the way like the upgraded items feel like a cool upgrade from the last one. Like one thing that I didn't really care about in the last episode was double claw shots were like kind of cool, but like really it's just you can hook shot then hook shot again. Or this is like you mentioned Rock's Cape. You go from you can jump to now like you can just fly around the screen. Or like boomerang, you can you go from throwing the boomerang to now you're like kind of controlling it, which is pretty neat for a boomerang. Yeah.
Only things I have like kind of negative to say about it is not much in terms of optional stuff.
Okay.
There are some things that are, again, locked behind the linked game. Mm-hmm. You can get the Master Sword and the Big Goron Sword and Bomb Shoes, of which they're really not that great. But it's missing a little bit, I think, in terms of optional content.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't what knocked it for me, because they're all used so tightly that I almost appreciate how focused it felt. Though I will say, like, other than all the other ones I mentioned, like how the upgrades felt cool in the last dungeon, like the triple seed shooter, I was like, oh, okay.
It's cool conceptually.
It made the boss fight a lot easier because you can hit the Medusa head a little bit better, but otherwise not that cool. And then I guess I maybe meant to, I didn't really bring it up in gameplay, but like the animals in the game, the companions are okay. I actually,
which companion did you end up getting, by the way?
I think Moosh.
Who I got Moosh. By default you get Ricky, but if you purchase the strange flute from the shop,
I did. Okay, I never called Moosh unless I really needed to.
Right. Yeah. You don't really need him too much.
So from it, I actually don't think they're as cool as as they are. I mean, I'm glad they're there though.
Let's talk about. We've kind of hinted at it a few times now, but the dungeons of the game.
Yeah. They're awesome, I think. Again, I just love this era of dungeon design in Zelda where they're like very complex, but also like finely detailed navigational dungeons where, you know, the big puzzle in the thing is just figuring out where to go. You're collecting multiple keys. That's a big thing, and having multiple options of where to spend them, and having to remember in your head, oh, I need to go back here. I need to go back here.
Right.
Or like, oh, I need this item to progress this way. I love that. That's like why I love Zelda, is that I love picking away at these the knots of the dungeons.
Right.
And this is if anything this game does right is the gameplay and the dungeon crawling.
Right.
So for me, like, that's the strong suit of this game as well. Again, I've talked about the use of the items in the dungeon. Like, I think they have great puzzles that involve all the items and the combinations. I've kind of touched on that, you know.
And this game, more than I think most Zelda games, is very item centric to the specific dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is like maybe more than any other game. It's like you get the magnetic gloves in Unicorn's Cave, and it's like every single puzzle involves the magnetic gloves. The boss involves the magnetic, and it's the same thing with like the magic boomerang. But
then they still carry over into the other dungeons.
Yes.
And you're eventually having to like jump and glove and shoot or boomerang a switch so you can jump here. You know, they're really cool, I think. The progression is obviously, we talked about that. It's cool. The only like knock, you know, I said it was excellent, but just some of them lack distinctiveness other than the cool color design.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's neat. But like, yeah, it's the opposite of what we talked about in Twilight Princess, where, you know, it's like, what is this place? Especially with the story. It's just like, you got to go to Poison Moth's lair. Why is it called that? Well, there's a poison moth at the end.
Yeah. It's like if I just jump in and say, you know, what are your thoughts on Unicorn's Cave? And like
I can't.
Which one is Unicorn's Cave? Wait, is that the one? And it's the dungeons are not as memorable. Mm-hmm. And I feel that this is not just because it's a 2D game and it's a top-down game. Because I think to its counterpart, like Oracle of Ages, has some of the same problems with some of the earlier dungeons. Yeah, but some of its later dungeons, like Mermaid's Cave, it's got a past and present. It's got Jabu Jabu's belly with the water level, and there's the ancient tomb. There's very thematic and very distinctive dungeons.
Yeah.
This one, I think Sword and Shield Maze is probably, and maybe Explorer's Crypt are the only ones.
No, Explorer's Crypt I think is a standout. I think it's it's a 5 dungeon. Where all the other ones are 4s, maybe.
Yeah, but those are the only two that are standouts that were like, oh, I'm in this dungeon. Like, this is clearly the the like ghost themed dungeon, and this other one's a fire and ice themed dungeon. Like, you know me, based on my rating from Twilight Princess, I love thematic dungeons.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
and this one, like anybody who's played this game, you think back, and most of the dungeons won't be memorable. You might have had a good experience with them, but I feel that's kind of important.
Yeah. But not enough to. I mean, we said they were excellent, though.
Yeah, I gave it a 3, so I'm right in the middle.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, to me, with a lot of things in this game, it really feels like the focus Capcom was going for was just like to make a really fun game to play.
Yeah.
And story wise and stuff, it's, you know, you hear about how there was like the third Oracle game that never made it past concept, and they put some of it into this. Even this feels barren of some ideas in terms of what everything means, but like I gave it a 4 because just playing it is so good and satisfying.
Yeah.
And I'll remember some of the dungeons for the puzzles and stuff.
Okay, let's talk about some of the bosses and some of the enemies. It's worth noting that, you know, when they were originally making 3 of these games, one of them was going to be a remake of The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
And a lot of those elements carried over into Oracle of Seasons, particularly like the first couple, like the first dungeon is almost in the same structure as the first dungeon of Legend of Zelda.
Yep.
And virtually all the bosses from The Legend of Zelda have basically upgraded versions in this game. I thought initially it's cool to see a new Aquamentus. It's cool to see a new Dig Dogger, a new Manhandla, like all of them.
I'm happy they're there in a way.
The only issue is that there's not that much in terms of new bosses.
There's like 1 or 2 though, right? I mean,
the boss of Sword and Shield Maze, it's like a Medusa head. It's a metal lock or whatever it's called. But
okay.
And I will point out though, some of the mini bosses in this game are standouts to me.
Yes. That's what I said too. Is I like the mini bosses in this were way more fun than the bosses.
Some of them, not all of them, but.
or just in terms of having that like, oh, I've got to use the bracelet to lift these squids out of the water and throw them, or whatever you had to do. You know, like where it actually had some kind of cool puzzles where. I don't know. I felt like the bosses were a bit more combat focused. Sometimes that got old. Like Aquamentus and Mothula, I didn't move when I fought them. I stood in one spot and just sorted them, and they died. You know, it's like
okay.
And that's not like a strat I've developed. That was just me. That was me doing the Jamie strategy.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but then some of the later ones are like.
They get really hard.
So hard. Gleehawk, I felt, was... Once I knew what to do, it was a little bit easier, but I was getting demolished, you know.
I feel Manhandla is a difficult boss.
Manhandla was the one I was thinking of that is my favorite return boss.
Okay.
Because I felt like...
It's totally different.
Totally different. That was fun. That was like a great change. But yeah, some of the bosses there were more... Just swing your sword at it, you know.
Yeah. Overall, some good bosses... I gave it, I think it's middle of the road. This is more so because I think there are a lot of Zelda games that have awesome bosses. There's very few Zelda games I think the bosses are atrocious. So
okay, yeah.
I was thinking to myself, I'm like, if I give this a 4, nothing's gonna get below 3.
Yeah, that was a struggle I had with this too, where it's like, am I ever gonna give a Zelda game story a 1? I don't know.
Yes. So this is like one of the things, like when I'm doing the scale, when I'm thinking, how am I rating this amongst as a Zelda game? So
I'm gonna flat out admit that I might never, you know, maybe I won't for some of these categories give a 1, but we'll see.
There's a chance that we don't know. I haven't.
I'm going with my heart, you know.
Yeah, I have not like written out all 16 major games, and these are my rankings, and they're saying.
You know, one thing we didn't talk about in our last video when we talked about bosses was the final boss, which is such a big part of Twilight Princess. But maybe we should... I mean, Onyx fight, I felt, was like... It's hard.
The Dark Dragon, the second phase, is really hard.
But I also found it very whatever. Like, I didn't find it that fun either.
Well, it's like, who is this guy, and why are you fighting him?
He's a dragon now?
Yeah. It's okay. The actual combat's okay. I do like the display... And the appearance, and it's not top down. It's like side-scrolling.
Yeah, which I don't like any of the side-scrolling stuff in this game, but that was kind of neat, I guess, as a visual.
Yeah, it's a solid final boss. I think one of the most difficult.
Makes you use the Rod of Seasons.
Oh, right, yeah, in the first phase, yeah.
Not in the way you would expect or hope, but
yeah, it's worth noting though that if you do play the Link game, you fight Twinrova and Ganon, and those are also extremely difficult bosses. So it's like this between, I think, the second phase of Onyx and Twinrova and Ganon, probably, I might say, the hardest like ending to any Zelda game.
Yeah, could be. I've never done the whole thing like legitly. I like save state or whatever.
In your most recent playthrough, did you die against?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I think back to the marathon of 2019. I was not able to beat Dark Dragon. I died, I think, 4 times in a row, and I granted I was underpowered and whatnot, and I didn't have any potion, but it was pretty embarrassing.
It is. Yeah, it is rough.
Good difficult bosses though.
Yeah. Oh, as far as the regular enemies, good mix.
There's a great diversity, and I like that there's new. I think there's new enemies in every dungeon. That's important to me. Just that.
And a lot of it's reusing Link's Awakening enemies, but
that's like probably the only knock I have on it. It's like a lot of it is familiarity. So it's like it's not.
That's why it lands on a 3 there for me in that aspect too.
All right, let's talk about the side content and the extras.
Yeah, I didn't realize you hated this.
Well, all right, where to begin with this one?
Wow.
So you know me, I love collectibles, and that's one of my favorite parts in Zelda. When I think of the side content here, one, there's the trading sequence, which I kind of talked about earlier. You don't even have to do it. Number one, because it just leads to a secret, and then you can just do it. So in subsequent playthroughs,
and it's kind of stale too.
Yes,
just in general, like a lot of it is just like here's a character from Ocarina of Time or something like.
Oh, like Malin is in there.
Yeah, Windmill Dude, Guru or whatever. I think of some of the other trading sequences in Zelda, like Ocarina or Link's Awakening, and for some reason I don't know what it is, or even Oracle of Ages, and there's just like a lot of charm to what you're doing. And I don't know what it is about this. It just doesn't have it. It's just like Malin, like, here's a Kukodex. And other guy's like, I need a Kukodex. Or whatever. I don't know. It just...
Right.
It doesn't click. I can't explain it, but charmless, I think. Or lacking charm.
Yeah. Like, you don't feel... There's no story of these individual characters. Like, I guess maybe, what's the mayor's wife you give the ghastly doll to? I don't know.
I didn't get around to doing it till, like, later because I, like... So much of it was unmemorable that I was like... I know a character needs this, but like I can't remember who, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just my unfamiliar with that, but like last couple years ago when I played like Ages, for example, I didn't have that issue. I did it similar to Link's Awakening where you almost have to do it as the game progresses. So, I don't know, just didn't click.
So the second part about this is the rings system.
Okay.
That's the main collectible, I would say, in this game. And I feel it's a little too complicated. I don't like the randomness, the RNG factor to it. To me, if they wanted to put 50 rings in the game and made 50 locations, that would have been the way to do it. I know the coding behind it. There's like tier 1 rings, tier 2 rings, tier 3 rings.
Yeah. And
like certain Gacha Seed locations will only give out certain rings, and certain mini games will only give out certain rings. So there's a lot of stuff like that. So it's like, and some rings are impossible to collect in one game. Forget any of that. But then just the process of equipping the rings is a little weird.
Sure.
One, you got to go get them appraised, and you got to put them in your ring box, and then you have to go into your inventory and equip them within your ring box.
I didn't actually know that. Maybe I didn't equip a ring.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yep. I remember...
I didn't notice a difference or care, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's like so many times...
that might change my score if I could.
Where it's like... I remember... this was actually another marathon story. I got the blue ring, and I got it equipped... Or I got it... I put it in my ring box, and I forgot to equip it. This is supposed to make you do half... I'm like, why am I not... Oh, I didn't go into the menu and click equip.
That's... Yeah.
It's kind of lame.
That is... Yeah.
And then later on, you can get the... I don't know if you're in your recent playthrough, if you were able to get the ring box upgrade.
I did.
Okay.
But I didn't realize That, yeah.
So it lets you hold 3 rings.
Mm-hmm. I thought they were all equipped.
Right, yeah. They're not all equipped.
Okay.
It just means you can hold 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder, why is there a ring box to begin with? Why can't you just equip all of them? Why do you have to go
You're
back to...
convincing me a
Why do you have
little
to go
bit
back to Vasu every time? You want to change which ones are... This seems like the dumbest thing.
Uh-huh.
What kind of system is this?
Yeah.
So, now...
This just didn't really strike me. With the RNG elements, that's something I think could be kind of cool just because it could spice things up a little bit. And especially because it's like collectible stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of fun, especially for me. I'm not like a completionist, so I don't need this specific ring. I don't need to go find it. This, like a lot of things in the game for me, is just like, I got a ring. Okay, next time I'm in town, I'll get it appraised, I guess. You know? Same thing with gacha seeds or whatever. I'm like, plant this here. Hopefully I come by this screen again. I gave it a 2 because, like, again, it's to say it was awful wouldn't describe my experience with it. It was just more like, whatever, cool. Oh, there's a heart piece, so I'll get that.
Yeah,
those are cool.
Heart pieces. There's 12 of them.
Okay,
so it's just like Link's Awakening. It's not like with Ocarina or Link to the Past or Twilight where there's an abundance of these heart pieces and you find them. It's only 12. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you're either gonna hit the 4 or the 8 threshold usually.
Yeah,
and one of them is a maple one, which is random.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if you ever got it from Maple.
That was the big holdup in the trading sequence for me too. Was because like I don't remember getting hint from her that she needed an egg.
Okay.
Was it? Yeah. And so I was just like, I got this egg. I knew Maple was part of it. I knew she like bumps you and takes the thing and gives you another thing. But I was like, I had kind of forgotten about it, and so it's kind of on me because maybe when I saw her again, I should have hit her just to check, but
when she appears, you just run off the screen.
I just be like, I don't care. I don't care. Like,
I always let her hit me because she drops potion or rings sometimes.
Maybe I should have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this wasn't bad though. I just.
Yeah. Well, I only know this because I know the game, so that's why I always. Oh, it's Maple. Let's see what she got. It's important. Like,
let's slam into her. Yeah.
So one of them is hidden behind a maple, and one of them is hidden in a gacha tree, a gacha nut.
Yeah,
but not just any gacha nut. This goes. There's various gacha nuts all over the world, and there's like a hidden tier system basically. I believe there's only 2 locations in the world where you can actually get.
You sound like you're describing a conspiracy theory right now.
Like if it's like you can be like, oh, you can get a heart piece in a gacha nut. Oh, okay, and you just keep planting one in front of the mayor's house. Mm-hmm. You'll never get a piece of heart there.
Okay, yeah.
It just won't happen. It's impossible. It has to be.
That would maybe be acceptable if there was something that would like hint to you like this is a special spot.
So there's
nothing.
It's this internal like tier system that is never explained in the game, and it's only in the data now that we know. Like years after we've mined all the data.
Now that we've done an autopsy.
Yeah. So
it's been declassified.
It's really hard to get all the heart pieces. Which
I didn't.
Yeah, it's impossible to get all the rings. First of all, you need to link the game with Oracle of Ages, and even then, it's a little complicated because, like, you can't get into the advanced shop.
Oh,
one of the shops in the main town is the. This was keep in mind this game was released on the Game Boy Color, but it was a really, really, really late Game Boy Color game.
Okay.
So you could play it on your Game Boy Advance. And if you're playing on the Game Boy Advance, then you have access to the Advance shop.
It's like a BS version of the Color Dungeon, almost.
It's more like you can buy one ring in there. And it's the Game Boy Advance Nature Ring, and I think Game Boy Advance... I forgot what the other... There's 2 of them.
Okay.
Lame. But, you can't get all the rings. So, between the gacha seeds, the rings... the trading sequence and the heart piece, none of them to me are like virtually every collectible in this game. It's like, I don't really enjoy any of them. So I think this is the worst side content maybe in any Zelda game.
I think that might be true. I just, like I said before, to me it didn't bug me too much, and then also I can't think of anything worse or better, just like whatever, got some rings.
Yeah. our last category is the music and sound. Mm-hmm. This is a bit of an odd one, I think, because it's hard. Because this is, the biggest thing holding it back is the console it's on.
Okay, yeah.
It is a Game Boy Color game. Mm-hmm. I gave it a 1 myself because I don't think any of the music is really awful, though.
Yeah.
It's just nothing outside of the overworld really is memorable.
For me, I think it was Corey, who's on our team, described it as like this kind of sound makes some of the tracks amazing and some of the tracks not amazing. So I'm not actually opposed to the more chiptune sound. I actually think it's great. Like that, and when people make music out of it, I'm like, I love this sound. Mm-hmm. But there is some element to it with like a lot of dungeon tunes where it's like it's hard to be like, I don't know, to build like a grim mood in the way some of the dungeons want to with the sound, I think, maybe. Mm-hmm. But in some of the areas where it's supposed to be like mystical, I think it's cool. Like in any ruins, Tarm ruins, I think that's super cool. Or like even when you're getting your thing at the end of each dungeon, or anywhere it's like, ooh, mystical, going to get the rod. It's like,
yeah,
I do think it enhances the composition in a lot of ways. But most of the songs are more forgettable because of it. Yeah. Though I'll give them credit that people stand up for Dancing Dragon Dungeon at times, maybe because it's the only memorable one. But like, to me, I think that is a pretty solid banger, and to get that out of a dungeon in one of these games, I think is kind of impressive.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, it's very easy to compare this game to Link's Awakening, mm-hmm. and Link's Awakening can't come out 8 years earlier mm-hmm. on the original Game Boy, but still the same audio tech. Mm-hmm. I think the same audio tech, but there's so many more memorable songs in Link's Awakening.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that I think the Link's Awakening soundtrack from the original Game Boy is like standout phenomenal, but like
there's some amazing tunes there too.
Yeah, for some reason I remember more of those than this.
I mean, I would agree, but I'm kind of biased in terms of that. But I mean, all that with the music considered, like the soundtrack is a 2. What really got me, what really brought it down to a 1, because we're talking about sound. There were times where I had to turn the sound off on the console I was playing it because the sound of the magnetic gloves was killing me. Okay. It's a neat sound effect to sound like whatever a magnet would sound like, but it was very high-pitched and grating. Mm-hmm. And it seems like a lot to do 1 letter grade down. No, but if we're talking about sound, the sound was off. You know what I mean? Like I just had to turn it off.
I lowered it myself. Yeah, in cases like that.
It's piercing. Yeah. So, if that wasn't there, like I might even raise it a little bit because I mentioned earlier, like I love the sound when you kill something in one of these games and it makes mm-hmm. or you pick up something and all like bloop. Like I love those sound effects of this era, but that killed me. That just killed me.
So that does it. Let's bring it to our final totals.
You went really low, I think, for this one, or like compared to what I think you're gonna give other games. Well, and everyone else too.
The community and staff both ranked the Oracle of Seasons lower than Twilight Princess did, mm-hmm.
By
a fairly considerable amount, I would say.
They still gave it 3s. Like, community almost has this as what we would consider a great game or excellent game. So.
Yeah, I get the sense it's coming. Things are coming into shape a little bit that
with 2 games, but
that most of the games are going to be in 3s and 4s from the community and the staff. I think. Yeah. Where maybe we're a little more negative than, or maybe I'm more negative than. Well, we'll see.
I don't know how much lower you or I will go though, but
yeah, how low can you go?
Part of me thinks like maybe I set the bar too high, and like what am I gonna be giving? There's a lot of room between 3.1 and 5 though, so we'll see.
Oh yeah.
So
But like even when I think of my favorite Zelda games, neither of these two are in the upper half for me personally. So obviously there's more above it than below it.
Well, I remember thinking about this game in terms of some of the games I like less, maybe like Twilight Princess, when we did our last definitive ranking, and thinking like, oh, this game is way better, even though it's not one of my favorites. Just thinking, oh, this is way better. And now I'm looking at it here, and as I was playing and kind of thinking about it, I was like, this has similar things that I kind of dislike about Twilight Princess, but in a different way, you know? So I don't know. I feel like we've hit, for me, both two games I think are good, like solid games, but you know, I'm lukewarm on for, well, actually slightly different reasons. Like I think Oracle of Seasons gameplay is just top notch, but yeah.
So overall, the average statistics all together, Twilight Princess is currently the definitive best Zelda game with a score of 3.3.
Yes.
Compared to Oracle of Seasons 3.2.
Okay. So we met in the middle with everyone, it seems. Yeah. And they maybe won out, I would say, you know, if this is a competition.
Well, none of that's going to matter because at this point we can announce next month's game. And it's The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So right now there is a poll in the description, so you can voice your opinion. You have through the first 2 weeks of March to cast your poll. So if you want to, you know, a little bit of a refresher, if you have Nintendo Switch Online, it is free to play, right?
Yeah, if you've got the subscription.
So go ahead and download it on your Nintendo Switch, play it, and then cast your vote. And I mean, without giving away spoilers, I know where it's going to fit on my list. I'm very curious to see how it ranks overall with the community in particular.
Yeah.
How it buds up against Twilight Princess amongst the community.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see. I mean, our lists match and community and staff lists kind of match. But I think here on out, we're going to... Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But I'm starting to feel like lists might start to be shaken up.
Well, right now there's between the 4 people and then the average, there's only 2 different rankings. Obviously, there's only 2 different games.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take at least 4 games until they're all distinctive.
Okay.
But we'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, guys. And tune in next month for our A Link to the Past definitive ranking.